Diddy's lawyers just submitted documents asking for the release of Diddy. Allegedly, Diddy's team is now demanding that they be given a new trial or the charges against Diddy be waived off.
The legal storm surrounding Sean "Diddy" Combs just keeps intensifying. After his recent conviction on charges related to transporting sex workers across state lines, Diddy's legal team is pulling out all the stops, filing motions for a new trial or even outright acquittal.
Diddy Combs' defense is requesting either a new trial or an acquittal altogether. Combs was found not guilty of the more serious sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges, but was convicted of transporting sex workers across state lines. Now his attorneys say his actions don't fit the crime. Let's bring in Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. Aaron, what's the latest here?
So, Diane, his attorneys say that the way this was charged doesn't exactly match what Sean Combs did, and they say he's the only person who's ever been convicted of this charge, transportation for the purposes of prostitution, who hasn't benefited from the prostitution other than through voyeurism. They say voyeurism, watching other people have sex, isn't what this law was meant to address. Combs, they say, didn't profit from the prostitution. In other words, he was no pimp here, and he wasn't a John either. He didn't have sex with the male escorts. Instead, he brought girlfriends and male escorts across state lines to watch them have sex. And his attorneys say that just doesn't fit what the law is about.
Meanwhile, prosecutors are pushing for a staggering 10-year prison sentence. The mogul's desperate bid for freedom now includes offering a $50 million bail package. Yet the courts have firmly denied his requests, citing his alleged violent history and danger to the community. Diddy's attorneys argue that his conviction doesn't fit the law as intended. He was found guilty under the Mann Act, which traditionally targets those who financially profit from prostitution. But his defense says Diddy didn't make money off these activities. He allegedly participated in voyeurism, merely watching others. They emphasize that he's neither a pimp nor a John in the traditional sense. Instead, the claim is he transported male escorts and girlfriends across state lines to watch them engage in sexual acts, behavior his team says doesn't constitute prostitution under the statute's original intent. This legal gray area forms the basis of their motion to overturn the convictions or secure a new trial. But federal prosecutors strongly disagree. They argue Diddy repeatedly transported individuals for commercial sex acts over decades and subjected women like Cassie and Jane to drugs and violent abuse to ensure participation. This paints a far grimmer picture, making the court view him as a danger who should remain behind bars. Since his arrest, Diddy has endured harsh conditions at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, or MDC. Sources reveal he was even placed on suicide watch shortly after arrival, a measure defined by the U.S. Department of Justice as close observation for inmates at risk of self-harm. Though he was later moved to a special protective unit, he is now housed in the general population, where tensions are high and violence is rampant. According to reports, Diddy has struggled mentally and physically in jail, breaking down into tears during the holidays and begging guards for medical observation, which was denied. His diet has shifted dramatically from luxury to prison staples like egg noodles, chili, and peas. While MDC offers commissary items, the spending limit is a mere $160, an immense downgrade from his former lavish lifestyle. The prison itself has a notorious reputation. Federal judges and media have questioned its dangerous environment, citing rampant violence, poor food, and frequent inmate deaths. Rumors swirl that Diddy fears for his life, with some suggesting he may even be targeted for extortion or worse by other inmates or external forces. Adding another layer of intrigue is Diddy's long-standing business relationship and legal battle with liquor giant Diageo. Since co-owning De Leon Tequila with Diageo in 2013, tensions escalated to a lawsuit in 2023, where Diddy accused the company of racial discrimination and failing to honor their billion-dollar partnership. By January 2024, they settled out of court, ending their business ties, but the timing raises questions. Only 2 months after the settlement, federal agents raided Diddy's Miami and Los Angeles homes, confiscating massive amounts of digital data. Could the fallout from the Diageo dispute have played a role in his legal troubles or prison targeting? Speculation abounds about whether powerful Hollywood and corporate figures are trying to distance themselves or silence Diddy before more secrets emerge.
Some insiders whisper that Diddy could be the next high-profile figure to meet a tragic fate behind bars, drawing comparisons to Jeffrey Epstein's mysterious death. Suge Knight, a controversial figure himself, has claimed Diddy is an FBI informant playing both sides, suggesting his public desperation and legal battles are just a facade to protect himself. Others highlight the shadow of historical violence, mentioning ongoing investigations and allegations involving people close to him and even the notorious unsolved murder of Tupac Shakur. While these claims are unproven, they add fuel to the idea that Diddy's incarceration is more than just a straightforward legal case.
Diddy's pre-sentence report, which heavily influences his final sentence, could determine whether he faces a decade behind bars or a shorter term. The report will consider his criminal history, the severity of his crimes, and victim impact statements. With prosecutors pushing for harsher punishment and the judge's previous denial of bail citing his dangerousness, the outlook appears grim. At the same time, Diddy is enrolled in programs mandated by the Bureau of Prisons, which sometimes indicates preparation for eventual release. Yet, his mental health remains a concern. Friends close to him reveal the challenge of adjusting from a life of immense power, money, and freedom to confinement and vulnerability.
Sean "Diddy" Combs' story is far from over. As he fights to overturn his convictions and navigate the brutal reality of prison life, the world watches closely. Whether he can survive the coming months or even years in custody remains uncertain. One thing is clear: if he ever decides to speak openly, the ripple effects could shake powerful institutions to their core. Is this just the consequence of his actions finally catching up to him? Or is there a larger, more sinister plan unfolding behind the scenes? Only time will tell.